Hello, Velvet. Blessings, everyone. This is Mary Costello. This is our very first talk in the womb room. It's so exciting. We are devoting this space to the emergence of and the encouragement of the eternal beginnings and the voice of eternal beginnings, wanting to create the correct space that facilitates the unfolding until or the emergence of the vibrational beginnings of whoever comes here and of whatever connections are made here. I want to introduce Velvet Eldred. She's from Australia. So we don't know where this conversation could go because it could go anywhere. This such is the way it is, but it's Velvet has been working with in community development, and from what I can gather, the 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 underlying thread of that is gathering people's stories and learning the ways of and the means of being human and the ways and means of community and togetherness and how to do that in a way that embodies and or expresses the embodiment of love, the embodiment of mother, and
Mm,
allows for the actual like anchored feeling the ways and means of love in love that we
mm.
can feel in a community. Um, and Velvet's question, as she has navigated between these two worlds, bringing the being the feet of the mother on earth, how do we do love within the community? What does that look like? How do we do it in a way that works and stays working, sustainable systems and structures, right? Does that sound fair, Velvet?
It does sound fair, Mary. Yes.
Super.
Yeah.
You're so
So,
welcome.
um, I was so inspired by your live yesterday, and I'm a visionary, I'm a dreamer. So, what I find is your posts put words to what I've just seen, and so often I found in talking to you and reaching out to you that we have a very similar understanding energetically of what we've just witnessed going on the planet. And I think there's a couple of prongs to that story. Of course, there's always the individual work, and that's hard work. As you said in your speak last night, we do get under attack. Holding the principle of love is quite challenging because it actually constantly asks the questions, where am I not in love with myself? Where do I not honor the other being in front of me as a total and sovereign agency? Where do my judgments stick? And working in community has been a sharpening tool for that. So I'm a theatre worker, a community drummer. We put on shows, but that include everybody. So people with disabilities and veterans, and essentially the overriding premise is yes, everybody belongs, everybody's welcome here. Um, and then, of course, those humans come with behaviors and value systems that are not necessarily shared in, say, a group of 60 people. So that then looks to, well, how do we navigate systems that are not hierarchical and systems of running over people's stories, running over people's trauma informed work that take in cultural differences and a shared honour of the land that we're now standing on. Because we have an Indigenous population here that never ceded country. So, on a continual unbroken line of guardianship. So, how do we acknowledge not only the terror of colonialism, but how do we heal then country? So all these questions, and the how to. I've been through a lot of lineages. I've spent a while in the Buddhist realm, learning Bodhisattva realms, and the face of the fierce feminine. I was called into an Apache grandmother's stone, so I'm a stone carrier. So that's a healing of the environment and a law of love. I have my own white skin path, which is of Jewry and Catholicism, the Magdalena line, the constant discovery of a hidden history, and also the abuse and torture of women and women who have held this light. Um, I know for myself, and I came to a very simple conclusion. Agency for me is when I know what I know because I know it. That's simple. I know what I know because I know it. It's in right connection, it's right path. There's been some intuition. There's been the voice of the mother actually come through in explicit dreams. Sometimes I'm so thick they yell at me. And so um and and so working in that realm of the vision of what would the golden age look like on earth again,
Mm,
because there's also a memory. There's a memory in this body when we lived by the rule of nature and our systems of honor and integrity and love were intact.
mm,
I remember, and that was the major piece that happened to me after your podcast. I actually saw like a socket come into my willpower, and I felt the governance systems of the mother actually plug in. And I thought, all I need to really do is walk into still these systems that still operate on wounding and lack of love. Often these are government departments and, all the hospital, all the systems that don't breathe and hold this vibration. Again, you said it,
systems that
Mary.
don't breathe. I love that.
A change of heart. No, it's even simpler
Yeah.
than that, Mary. You made it so
Mm,
simple.
mm,
It just takes a change of heart to shift
yeah.
systems. Systems are populated by people. People have free will. Yes, it's a big journey to find that voice of courage to call out lack of integrity or lack of honor. I'm
Mm,
sure you know, Mary, as a light worker, a womb worker, I've been beaten up by systems. I have been kicked out, penalized, abused in this life and in past lives. It's not easy to be the voice that goes, this has no integrity. This is not right. This is
yeah.
not path of the honest greater good for all, not
Mm, yeah.
a fear-based greater good for all. So the golden dragon energy,
Mm,
I was born a dragon. That's my first memory. Mum has a story of saying, I went to her, where did you put my wings? And she said in the cupboard. So I spent the next half hour ran through every cupboard in the house, only to be seriously furious about,
mm,
my wings were gone, and constant flashes of a child of the rainbow serpent. This has always been a very strong uh, myth, story, energetic knowing. It teaches me lessons, or I get an aha when I'm in the presence of the rainbow serpent.
mm,
I'm also Australian, so the rainbow serpent is the creator story here of the Indigenous people. And
right.
where I live in Cairns, we're on the head of the rainbow serpent, so strong serpent dreaming here.
Mm,
And then the dragons came in. And a long story of dragons just bossing me around, really telling me what to do and what not to do. Like, I get very grumpy dragons. And until 2000, I actually literally saw a dragon kick open my kitchen door, and it came in and said, "We want back on the planet. Anchor us
Nice.
here." And
Mm,
that, you can see I'm covered in tattoos. They're all actually
yeah.
initiation markers of specific missions that I've been sent on by the dragons and the mother. And clearing the land. You talk of the crystal song lines. Well, this is not it's not a book you pick up and make up. There's lots of
Mm,
women now, because of the beautiful technology of Facebook. I can see women and the work they're
yeah.
doing and the work they're putting out in the world. And I just
Mm,
giggle because I'm nearly 60. And here are the young ones coming through. And it's like,
yeah.
I bow at your feet and I kiss you. I also have elders above me that shielded me. I call them the snow
Mm,
piercers, the women in their 70s who the first wave that came through and remembered shamanism. And I have grandmothers and elders in my life that were always a port of call. And then other strong women. I have a stunning 40-year relationship with my sister Lamo, and through thick and thin, there's been that constant calling into your integrity. Is this of love? Is your heart
mm,
unguarded here? And holding the imprints and the craziness of wounded stories. I probably have them
Mm,
in story where it's just a vivid flash and a feeling and a sense. And then maybe a book comes or you hear something and then other things coalesce. And then you have a story of the rape camps or the sexual slaves or the fall, the actual little moments that were imprinted on my soul so permanently that they still whispered in this lifetime to again another layer of forgiveness and recalibration on my behalf because essentially I think, Mary, when you call to Mother God to put you on an anvil and make you the best human being you can be, she's gonna send the job. Say, oh, there's a bit more cruelty and there's another wound or there's something that I was holding on to that I wasn't even conscious of.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah,
And so,
mm,
in each of us doing our own energetic system, you kept saying it so beautifully. It's embodied love, it's embodied wisdom, it's here through
mm,
the body, each and every one of us, turning
yeah,
on our lights and then populating those systems that
mm,
still operate on intentional cruelty and power over, and largely they're driven by money and authoritarian paradigms that look like kindness, but they're really control.
mm. It feels to me so much just to say in response of it. When you speak of those, you're describing the systems that you have, you know, been standing within, right? As this pillar of conviction, I'm seeing this. The word conviction is coming up in a way that I hadn't seen it before. Like just light, just a strength of eternal light. And I'm seeing this. It reminds me of something my mother used to say. My mother was always the center of things, right? That would mean you might be the center of chaos or the center of a circus, but you're at the you're the center nonetheless. But she never changed, so she would be agitated
Mm,
because of the circus. But I remember we would speak and I would come in frustrated, with a big idea, wanting to change the world, and I would be so cross with somebody. And she would say, just pray, maybe they'll have a change of heart. That's what she said. Pray, maybe they'll have a change of heart. And
ah,
she would soften me a little bit, just enough to get through. But
mm,
that's what I'm seeing about this conviction, like the ability to be in a system that is a circus or worse, as you say, you can actually feel the inherent cruelty. And when you
mm.
speak of forgiveness, what I see is actually reclamation, because
Yes.
if these systems, if the correct authority was in charge, um, there would be no need for secrets and cruelty and tricks. It would just work so easily. So it seems to just be such an unstable system of governance that needs to impose cruelty, that cannot trust humanity actually, and cannot trust the goodness of humanity to be able to be ordered and within the correct system. So if it feels like every time you're up against something so cruel and sickening, when you forgive it, it feels like you're reclaiming that aspect of. And now we're talking about what does the emergence of the structures, you say the governance systems of the mother. It feels like that's what you've been doing. You've been gathering, the nuts and bolts, or
I call them the
Mm.
cornerstones or protocols because I
Yes.
think it was Gabriel Roth. So one of my strengths and one of my first languages is dance. So I've studied dance, I've taught dance to and dance, of course, is about neuroplasticity and trusting your body. And I think it was Gabriel Roth who said dogma doesn't dance. And these ridges, it's very simple when you hear it. Dogma doesn't dance. So these authoritarian structures get rigid and they force people into this stratification of what is work, and what isn't work. And of course, that's then governed by these fantastical religious overtones of work ethic and guilt and shaming you if you don't have a proper job, which then, on the other hand, is about a tax base and fueling certain people's lifestyles on this planet, and that those taxes also feed the war machine.
Mhm.
This is not a system I have ever capitulated to. It's a very difficult system to get out of. So the only other thing to do is to make it conscious, and the use of my resources conscious, to be aware of, you know, the whole, and what I was trying to get, what you said before, is the lack of trust in humanity. If some kid wants to know, they want to be the best shoemaker or leather carpenter, or shell engraver, that we are so funneled into this machine that we don't trust humans to actually want to be purposeful and to want to create a beautiful world. And so then we're forced into the machine that pits us against each other for finite, well, what they tell us is finite resources. The A grade packaging with the A grade price tag, and then the B grade right down to your black and gold. And everywhere you get these signals of better than, and it is so harrowing to constantly look at these messages that you are no more than a slave on this planet, and you will serve this rigid textual structure of better than. And to break free of that is very, very difficult. People do want houses and mortgages, and they have children they want to do the right thing for, which all means a certain amount of money, currency, in exchange for the keys to that other 3D world. But my mum said to me growing up, Velvet, be in the world, but not of it. And so to come into the system almost like an assassin, this is a fantastic archetype, almost like an assassin. And again, it's another movie. I reference my life through stories because I'll hear something and go, oh, that's it. I walk in the shadow to serve the light.
Mm.
So I've worked in a lot of, with drug users and juvenile justice, and with veterans and a lot of broken people, because they need the most mothering and
Yeah.
and the most anchoring, and that's kind of like another part of my personality, or the mission I've had is that of the psychopomp, the capacity to navigate the underworld and to liberate the beings who are ready to move on. Because, those shadow worlds also need my utmost respect and my radiance and my love and my capacity for understanding while holding a very fierce boundary,
Yeah.
because they can be sneaky.
Mhm.
And
Wow.
they're sneaky in systems too. The
Mm.
beingness of cruelty, or the beingness of scarcity, or I see it constantly in the arts, where there's a round of, say, $100,000 and 20 projects are all vying. So essentially you're vying against other really good, talented arts workers for this small pot of
Yeah.
money. So then navigating things like resentment and frustration, and trying to be an
Mhm.
arts worker in the world while always having a second or third job, um,
Yeah.
and keeping the heart buoyant, and also knowing then that there's that place of miracles, that if you really want something and it's aligned with the mother,
Mm.
somehow it always turns up. This
Yes.
is this is the effortless. There's enough food to feed people. There's enough room on this planet under these governance systems for us to
Mm.
have, what is it, the self-perpetuating sustenance systems.
Yeah. That's what we want. We
That's
know,
what
we
we
know
want.
it. Yeah. We know it in our
Yeah,
bones. We're actually
it's
made
not
of it.
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, these
It's the love that
self-perpetuating
made us.
nourishment
Yeah.
sisters from the love
Mm.
that made us. Yes,
Yeah.
through the dynamics of love. And
Mm.
love has been made to be weak and cruel. I see a
Yeah.
lot of dynamic. You were talking about the first wounding between the masculine and the feminine. And
Mm.
one of those wounding patterns, that love equals cruelty. If you don't do as you're
Yeah.
told, and you don't
Mhm.
give me provided attention, then I have the right to be cruel to you and put you down and
Yeah.
belittle you. And
Mhm.
it's been in the last 2 weeks. Sometimes I just stand there, Mary, and then this story comes, and essentially it is of the dissatisfaction and frustration of women who love men, who can no longer take the cruelty,
Mm.
the
Yeah.
toxic king within the domesticity of their family unit. And
Hmm.
I think, as you were saying, this is the energy that's shaking up along the bloodlines. I
Yeah.
think that's another incredible
Hmm.
piece of insight, the bloodlines that are creating the story of war between men and
Yeah.
war between brothers,
Hmm.
and that the chosen one is a story of bloodlines, the chosen bloodlines, the blue bloodlines.
Mm.
Mum doesn't care. Mum really doesn't
Yeah.
care.
It's
Mum doesn't care
incredible.
any of
Mm.
that stuff. It's rubbish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And
it seems like this powerful imprint, not powerful, an imprint that is dissolving now, truly to unify the body of blood, um, into the one understanding,
yeah,
and taking the terror and the war out of the blood. And as you say, for so many women, um, often I find, as we're speaking about the wounds of women, and you work closely with women who have suffered, because of their love, let's say, because of their open hearts. And that's not to um, negate anyone's suffering, but women have we have the right and the duty as women to self-define, to speak our stories in relation to ourselves without
yeah,
having to consider what that does to others in a way. And what I mean by that is, we cannot, it is not healthy and it is not helpful to anybody to have to be so careful with our speaking of our stories in a way that we don't offend people.
mm,
We have to speak our truth, and we all know the truth of what it means to be traumatized and abused within intimate relationships. I
mm,
would say most. I can't speak, I can't give a percentage, but that is
mm.
not in, that is about self-defining what it has been for us.
Yeah,
So yeah, how these programs have actually physically impacted us in the living of our
yeah,
lives. Yeah.
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 In the living of our lives. And
Mm.
so I think one of the things you said too, because I've listened to that speech, that video twice now. Like I was
Yeah.
so excited last night. I couldn't eat and I couldn't sleep, and I was walking up and down, quite euphoric,
Activated.
Maddie. Oh my God, we've got it. And of course I'd had this imprint come in of this system, and it's funny, Mary, because when I first met you, I had
Mm.
been sent on mission from the Rainbow Serpent to take my dragons over to Ireland because I could see dragons over there. And only in the way I saw it, that had kind of forgotten themselves, were kind of a
Mm.
bit asleep and a little bit apathetic. And there's some wonderful women there working with dragons, but it was kind of, they needed a bit of a defibrillator moment, stand back.
Yeah.
Um, and my family on my mother's side, and my mother's father and my mother's mother both have Irish ancestry. So
Mm.
in Australia, in my family, that meant more Irish than Irish.
Mm.
So this steadfast loyalty to the motherland. And I came back there last year with my mum's ashes to take her on a tour of her homeland. I had the most amazing magic happen. I found the land that was Thomas Connolly's or Kennelly's from back then. I wanted to meet you, but you had family business that day. But
Yeah.
essentially, it was building that rainbow bridge between
Hmm.
Australia and Ireland. And as soon as I touched down in Ireland, like the flight over, my heart, I just started to cry. And I just don't care anymore what people think of me. I just do not care. I was
Yeah.
crying, going, oh, Mum, we're home. Energetically, I could feel the rush of the ancestral knowing of this land rush
Mm.
out and welcome me back. And then as soon as I put my foot on the ground, it was like this sonic boom went out. And I felt kind of the dragon's heads pop up, and then I just wandered. I had no plan. I just let
Mm.
Mother God be my tour guide, and I found Genevieve McGinnis up in Derry, and
Yeah.
Siobhan. and the found yourself, and then beautiful Jennifer Connolly. And I
Yeah.
stayed with her for a week, and we did a lot of work around Michael Skellig. And
Mm,
I was actually sitting in her lounge room, and I started to feel sick, and I
mm,
felt this waves of hatred coming at me. And
mm.
everywhere I go, I take my beautiful crystal. This has been all over
Beautiful.
the world with me. Masculine, feminine, perfect balance, divine grace. It's smoky quartz covered in wolfram. And even the night before, I was aware of something belligerent, but I couldn't
Mm,
quite get it. I was just aware of it, and I'm being protected from it. The next morning, the full throttle, there was a blockage in the land there. It was full of hatred for the feminine. It held dragons trapped underneath it. Um, one would think I had to do a spectacular song and dance show to do medicine. Look, they just say go and stand there.
yeah.
It's sometimes I want more theatre. I want drums and dancing and howling. Like, no, I just can't stand there with your crystal and just, sing a little song and just be completely bewildered and think you're mad, except that you're standing on this hill overlooking Michael Skellig and Kerry going, well, if this is madness, this all right. So I'm completely potty. Um, and so, since then I do feel this rainbow energy between, especially when you started picking up Uluru and the
Yeah.
grandmother. That was
Mm,
extraordinary. Yeah, because I work with
yeah.
Indigenous mothers and messages were
Mm.
passed forwards, and it was beautiful.
That's incredible. What you say about the ease and grace in the end, I find that so funny as well. Because I'm still that little girl running into my mother, telling, listen to this, look what I found. I can't believe this. I still have that energy of like, I found the thing, right? I found the thing. I found the what we need to break free. And then in the end, it's literally, it just feels like you've just like opened a ribbon. It's the easiest correction at the end because we're just
Yeah,
like bringing it back to the way it was. But it's good to
yeah.
be excited and all of that too.
But
I
I
wanted to
think
say
too,
to you about, oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, no, no, I was going to say,
Mm,
but also just being aware is that by the time you get to pull that thin thread,
mm,
actually done the work. You don't
yes.
get to pull that correction without pulling up the triggers, the implants, the false memories. So,
Mm,
I just
yeah.
want to again honor you that you just
Mm,
made that sound so effortless. But I also know the work that it takes to anchor that
yeah.
energy. There is no bone left unturned in you sometimes by the time you get out the other side of the mother's anvil and
Yeah.
then release the.
Ta-da!
Yeah, the
Yeah.
ta moment, what it took to get
Yeah.
to the ta moment is often like a
Yeah.
hellish battle of the soul. And
I I feel like it can be so focused and present because it's this funnel of now. So
yeah,
I most of the time don't even remember what I
yes.
did, to be honest. I don't, that's why I actually write everything on Facebook because I cannot remember anything. I can go back and read the things, you know.
And I think that is such beautiful testimony to your mastery because I have a lot of younger women around me. And of
Mm,
course, when you're younger and you really are in the grindstone of being deconstructed again, and the world is
mm,
doing things for you, not to you, to become the best human, it can seem like such a drag, and it seems like a perpetual eternity that you can be in the bog of your own
mm,
creating. And sometimes all you've got is an elder sister heart or an elder's grandmother's heart to sit with you and
mm.
say, rest today, struggle tomorrow.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I love that sense of mastery when you get through the struggle and you go, oh, that only took 24 hours this time. I mean, phew. All right.
Like,
And then
yeah, yeah. It's like I'm
yeah,
gonna go buy some roses and sit down. That's what I do.
that's right. Yeah. Well, that was a big one.
Yeah. I would want to talk about what you brought up about the rainbow serpent, and it's interesting that time you and big love to all those women you met with in Ireland, and when that time when we were talking, it was actually around the time my mother's ashes were being released as well. Very funny that it was we were had the same purpose. And my mother, as I was speaking with you, my mother had a very powerful lady, but a mother of six children, seven, six who lived, and but she did some traveling, and she just seemed to gather all sorts of amazing things for a woman who was nonstop cleaning the house and feeding us. I don't know how she did anything else, but because she fed us like a queen, you know, she cooked perfection every single day. Our house was spotless. I have not a notion how she did this, but she was powerful. But she had all these collections of things which she gave me over time, and some things, and it's only in the meeting of people or in special moments the code or the pearl of what she gave me comes to life. And she gave me this like red, almost like a little tapestry of a rainbow serpent. Don't know where she got that. And I had that on my mantelpiece when we were speaking. And yeah, so this the connection was very much, I feel like, through the song lines of
Yes,
the grandmother, mother, and daughter. And what I'm feeling now, what I'm so, so grateful for, is the unified connectivity between us all is done this way through the song,
yes,
you know, and we are releasing. There has been a lot of connection in this, almost, I would say, like a psychic, um, or perhaps all connections just had the tone of battle. And now it feels like all connections are just resuming the way they are in the tone of love. And like returning to crystal connection. That's what it feels like, you know?
mm. I think I've always had an incredible sense of luck in
Mm,
meeting the most extraordinary people. Like my whole time in Ireland, I was met with such profound kindness. Even
mm,
when I was just standing in Limerick, completely lost because I had no idea what the sign about parking actually meant. This dear
mm,
old fella just came up and started talking to me. So I think on one hand there is the battle and
mm,
the meeting through that imposed hierarchy. It's an assumption that we've all come to be competitive when we walk into a room, and again it's the work of holding that light and holding the different frequency, and then role modeling through behavior, how, because I am a leader, I run projects. So when that battle hierarchy is so unconscious that it pits, people against one another, and how a leader then uses different energetics and
mm,
willpower to to shift that into a system of love. um,
mm,
because my other experience to that is meeting a woman and instantly being in love, instantly knowing that this is somebody I have known and you talk about, it's the frequency, the
mm,
the the oscillation, the immediate open heart, and the light in the eyes. There's sometimes a smell, and that
yeah.
again was my experience with women in Ireland. It was like a homecoming.
Mm,
But I also saw the difference, and this is, I've come back to Australia, and I have my sister of my heart, and in our mythology, she's my dragon rider. I'm dragon, she's the rider, and we work together. And I was able to talk to her about the difference between the mother and the women that I saw in Ireland, and
mhm,
having come from an Irish family, but what makes Australian women different? Because we
mhm,
are a land of broken female lineages. We were
mhm,
colonized, we went here. And in a way, we have to, look, I know my mother and my grandmother, but behind those women, I don't know. My great, 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 great grandmother was an 8-year-old orphan that came out on the populating ships. She went into indentured servitude. And the
mm,
thing that was fascinating for me to go back to Ireland was that your women lineages, your grandmother and often have been in the same village and the same lineage, and the energetic difference and work that needs to be done with
mm,
healing women lineages, where ours is almost a soul break what I witnessed, yours is almost like stories of almost cruelty and women's inhumanity to women, and
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine what it was like growing up under 800 years of
Mm-hmm.
war and civil structure and all those paradigms that actually put the mother asunder.
Yeah.
My ancestral land came to a land, a massive land of indigenous people. So when you got here, you could actually go out to the middle of nowhere where the land started to speak to you. And I think that was one of my first really big teachers, is that I grew up in the bush listening
Mm.
to the land, and it was an Australian landscape. But
Mm.
when I went to Ireland and I saw the oak and the yew and the beech and the hawthorn, I also knew these trees. There's a magic there that I innately know through my mother line. There's a softness
Yeah.
in the women there and a purity. And I
Mm.
find very the Mary Magdalene Rose energy there,
Yeah.
where when you will come to Australia, you'll go, oh, you mob a feral. You don't even wear shoes and not a lot of clothes either often.
I would love that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I find what I have found from the women in my line and maybe the essence, and I see it in my daughter as well. It is a purity, and it's a perceptive, it's an observational position, and it's a light pillar, and
Mm.
there's a lot of containment. There's a lot of self-containment, you
Yes.
know, because and
Yes, very
yeah,
well said. Yes.
yeah, and a lot of self-preservation, and
Yeah.
almost like it is called to be this. Well, you cannot be anything but pure if that's what you are, but there's a call almost to hold this line, and whatever that takes. And it's the
Mm.
whatever that takes is what creates the story that we have to unpack in the end, when we get to the place
Yeah.
where we can actually exhale and say, well, what on earth did I just live through? But it was whatever it took. Um,
Yes.
so anyone who stayed in Ireland, anyone who was able to stay in Ireland through what we were faced with, I would surmise, had to um have some degree of, like, had to adapt to the occupier, to be of the
Mm.
mind of the occupier, to be able to self occupy, to be able to self contain in this rigid way so as not to
Mm.
alert the master, right? That's truly what the feeling of, it's almost like to be raised with this pure light, but have the thorns, like have exceptional thorns and use of weapons in your makeup. And this is what
Mm.
I feel within the women. But I do feel now the place of exhale, the place of the release of that. And yeah, that is beautiful. That's incredible.
Mm.
A place where
Mm.
these women can be walking in the honor of themselves, in a place they recognize of their own making.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. And that is it, isn't it? A voice from the heart of the womb in your own making, in your own
Yeah.
image. Because still on this planet, we have men telling women what the definition of a woman is or isn't.
Mm.
And then they make laws around that. And it's like,
That's the
well,
latest. Yeah.
there we go. And I actually often
Mm.
wonder when I have my little chats to mother, going, is this just again, a reaction to the power of the womb coming online? It's
Yeah.
just another interesting effort to not allow womb women their
Hmm.
voice as a biological woman, and the
Yeah.
sacred codes that we hold that were never
Mm.
forgotten. And I had a beautiful image when you were speaking. I think it was something else I read of yours, of say the decimation of the last golden ages and the
Mm.
keepers of the flame, the places that the golden mother was put, and then those
Mm.
generators going through generations holding this light,
Mm.
being found, getting dead. I have so many stories, Mary, of getting dead, of
Mm.
being on. This is the first lifetime I've ever lived over the age of 40.
Okay.
Every other lifetime, I was taken
Mm.
off the planet. And
Mm.
I had a massive psychic attack a couple of weeks ago, but I was after this veil of forgetfulness. I could sense this technology over my head,
Mm.
um, and that led to a whole other different, series of psychic attacks because the light, um, it's almost like leveling up a notch and sort of being so blown apart by the next level of light that it does attract different players. And sometimes though that can come from really sneaky corners from trusted allies, and at the same time working through those attacks and working with forgiveness and pulling myself back together,
Mm.
I come back reformed again, like those initiations of holding on to my integrity and noticing the wounding and notice where I was gotten at, but healing myself and then doing the story of not holding a projection
Yeah.
on another being. So constantly
Hmm.
allowing the possibility of change.
Mm. It's
Mm.
really an incredible position because there isn't any really any core self-doubt. There is a core strength that is just continually in dialogue with whatever the field is, and
Yes.
you told me a beautiful story. I'd love if you could tell it when you spoke of the hell realms being brought to the tone of love. And we have walked in battlefields. That's the truth of it, right? Things have felt like battle, even though we didn't. You say we don't battle. Well, for some, if it feels like it, of course, but it's
Yeah.
like what did you say? The sword of innocence, and that's what's
Yeah.
changing the field around
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's what, yeah, yeah. So I come from a lineage of warrior healer. It's another pathway.
Mm.
One of my tattoos, I'll just show you this,
Yeah.
can you see it? This tattoo here, this one.
Yeah.
It's the Mawate. It's the Native American Apache symbol. And I was told by those grandmothers that I had to walk the foreskin path. I had to be
Hmm.
initiated the pathway of Buddhism, the yellow path, an Asian pathway. I have my
Mm.
white lineage, Mary and the Magdalenas, the Druidry, but also the scalding of Catholicism and
Yeah.
colonialism and all the woundings of that. With the black path, I've been initiated with the grandmothers into the seven sister dreaming and one woman law, the way of right way and protocol to land. And
Mm.
then, yeah, so these have kind of all melded around me. It was almost like I learned a universal truth in one lineage, and then I was just kind of, dragons would change color and I'd be passed over to somebody else to learn the next
Wow.
wave of embodied knowing. Um,
Mm.
and so as a warrior healer, it is the way of Geronimo, and it is the way of battle.
Mm.
I studied martial artists. My dad sort of said to us as girls, no girl of mine will ever be a victim or raped. So he got us into a martial art really early.
Super.
And I took to it like a duck to water because I needed the discipline. I needed
Mm.
the teachings of the way of the warrior. And that is, you learn to be a warrior so you never have to use it.
Yeah.
You come to an understanding as I've matured that any anger, retribution, or revenge on a battlefield makes you a very messy warrior and you leave the field. The only thing
Mm-hmm.
that can actually battle or wage these energetic wars is innocence and
Okay.
defenselessness. And I've got this also through a series of dreams. One of the big dreams I had was I'm on a battlefield and there's like the Grand Canyon and there's an army behind me. We have swords. The healers are up the back in the battlefield, and the Dark Lord. I call them the Dark Lords. They're just the mob that choose fear and power over and take more than what's really fair mob. And they're all doing their sort of orcness over on the other hill. And we actually drop the swords and we sing to them. And it's the hue sound. And this sound of these warriors come rushing over my head and they kneel and they kneel, and it was like looking at all the woundedness because everybody is hurt. Even these dark beings come from a position of hurt. Sometimes it's willful ignorance, and the only way through your bodhisattva vows and the fierce feminine, the Poldam Lamos, the Kalis, the Sekhmets, the Durgas, is you actually just are dismantling the ego. So when you see the charnel grounds and these massive warriors with the garlands of egos, it's like taking their head, because in their willfulness they're going to hurt themselves or hurt others. And that's what a warrior can't do. So that's when you do use violence as a methodology for quelling what is actually going to be a war. I mean, I would love to think I could be a pacifist, but I've actually seen the dark side in action, and there
Yeah.
is no mercy. They
Hmm.
will hurt you. They will take you off the planet. They will
Yeah.
use physical force, punitive punishment. They will use torture. They will use abuse. And as light
Hmm.
workers, I don't think we can ever really forget the beingness of the dark in the dark. It's the choice point. And
Hmm.
that was another vision, Mary. I'd actually ask, well, what is the darkness behind the dark, the choice? What is the choice point? And I saw a wall of like sticky black tar, and I was just walking up and down it with my sword dragging behind me, saying, well, can you be dismantled? Well, what if I loved you enough? What if I chucked a bomb? What if I kicked you? I'm having this chat to the beingness of darkness, and I'm a cheeky little bugger. And it's like, no, this darkness will always be a choice point for humans who choose to not feel their humanness.
Hmm.
We don't always get what we want, and we hurt. And in that pain and suffering and loss of love or unrequited love, or it's usually all about love, deceit, betrayal, dishonor, we can react from a very nasty place and feel
Hmm.
justified in doing that.
Yeah.
But it just brings in the dark lords and the dark choices and the self-worth,
Hmm.
the worthlessness runs, and then you drink or you take drugs to crown that feeling, rather than coming through and going, well, this is really ugly and horrible feeling, and I have to feel it to get
Yeah.
to forgiveness and atonement, acts of contrition.
Hmm.
And the beauty of the light that is always there, it just gets covered up with really crap choices sometimes.
Yeah. I
Mm.
just, I'm thinking of my son when he was younger. He painted me a picture. He was about 6 or 7. And he's kind of like me. He runs into the room like he's just cracked the code, right? Every now and again, runs into the room. I have it, I have it. And he's painted a picture of this devilish figure and a golden figure. And the golden figure was just throwing gold on the devil. And he said, "This is how you change the bad one. You put gold on them. That's how you do." And he knew it. He cracked. It was cracked, right? It was like, I got it. And we hung up the picture. And it's that is the simplest illustration
Mm.
of it. But then the doing of that
Absolutely.
has taken its toll also.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just
Mm,
wanted to come back to, and the other thing is the actual understanding and compassionate heart I have for people
mm,
who have been hurt and children who have been abused, who grow up with
mhm.
this system of lack of love, lack of belonging, and the behaviors that does create because of the absence of love. These are the beings
Yeah.
I'm sent to love.
Mhm.
This is the world I work in, because all behavior is really that dark is an absence of love and unconditional positive regard, and sitting with somebody until they come to their own grief and expression of the anger of what's actually happened to them. It's such a great question. What
Yeah.
happened to you, and what's your story?
Mm.
Which comes right back to why storytelling is so important and why our voices so
Yeah.
important. To have a story, Mary, of the golden dragon mother and the place of hope and the change that
Mm.
can come through
Yeah.
doing the work, bringing in the golden mother, and having, so many people hold this vision of the possibility of love in motion.
Yes. The love
Yeah.
in motion. This where I am now, Velvet, is so I know the will, I know the desire, I know the heart of us. And what I want is to see this network emerging, a fully comprehensive network of all the systems, all the supports, the eternal systems and supports, self-sustaining, that can offer the invitation to
mm,
everyone to say, okay, I can unplug from this system of duality, of where I have a position where I'm doing okay in whatever,
mm.
whether I'm hiding or whether I'm dominating or whatever, and can actually offer them an alternative. Energetically, I want to offer an energetic, an alternative energetic world, like the world that is the truth, the world that would be beneath what they're
Mm.
in, so they can just drop themselves into it. And
Into it,
that's what
yeah,
I want, yeah, between us. That's what I feel, where I feel we are now. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, and as you said, it just there are people that govern systems, and it just takes a change of heart, and then the
mm,
courage to, in so many ways, speak truth to systems and say this is not working. It's not of love. As
mm-hmm.
humans, we have the capacity to be brilliant. We have our brain. We have everything we need to make these systems work. We have everything we need. It's the siphoning off of that good
Yeah.
into the war machine and into those better than systems that is
Mm,
it can't sustain us. So, they then have these fantastic notions about, plant-based diets and stopping air travel. And again, it always
yeah.
seems to come down to the common people wearing the consequences of a lifestyle and choices that are made by our leaders that is not life affirming.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
it undermines the nature of people. It undermines humanity. It puts another constriction, another limitation. Like as
Mm.
you say, it takes it tries to squash the dance even further.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm seeing this in rules made out of notions that have no foundation in reality. I was at the beach the other day and they've taken all the benches away. All the benches have been taken away, and I guess they might think, oh, well, that's to stop people sitting around drinking or something. But it has, I just see how many people that has excluded from going to the beach. There's nowhere to sit. There's
Yeah.
things like that, there's like just things that they just break the chain. They just put a cut and say, oh no, well, we can't trust people to sit on benches. We'll take away the
Yeah.
benches. There's all
Yeah.
these little breaks in the links that hold us together being done by quite a fearful, anxious, convoluted mind, a system of convolution, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
And
So,
I think, what we're seeing on this planet now is that end point where good people with good hearts, enough is enough.
yeah.
It's enough. And, I often say no one's coming to save us.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
there used to be the Gandhis and the Martin Luther Kings, but because of the way the media outlooks work and social media, it's so hard to actually have that
mm,
inspiring person and to
yeah.
have it reported on so clearly and
Mm.
diligently. Yeah.
My mother's voice is in my head now, and again, when I would storm into the room giving out about things like benches, she would say, write a letter, go write a letter. So I would go and write a letter, and sometimes it would work, things would change. So I'm going to write a letter about the benches. But what I wanted to say, where that brings me, is about the fullness. When you talk about all these spaces where ideas are created, systems are then created from the idea that is born in the lack of love, that is born in the absence of us. And it just brings me to the question, and I feel like we've come to the answer naturally. But what is stopping us? Or is there anything stopping us? Is there anything stopping us um, being the heart, like occupying the space of the heart of all things? Us right now, in
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
moment. What is stopping
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
I think, Mary, it's your breathing.
Mm,
You've said it. So it's about breathing fully.
mm, mm,
Um, I think it's finding that integrity code. And I think for you and I, I have a lot of practice and discipline around this, but when I heard us, I sort of thought common man, common people,
Mm.
humans. I
Yeah.
think, um, there's a lot of stories that people have to suffer before they realize that the world's
Mm.
gone crazy. I think we're there now. I
Mm.
think, it was about 2 or 3 nights ago, I had the most profound sense of peace come over me.
Mm.
I think I always pay attention to miracles and the great mystery and the
Mm.
place of light and love. Like, I I don't have the answer to that other than every single human being has to choose
Mm.
light, or the mass number of us has to choose light and then hold those
Mm.
accountable for the bloodshed on this planet accountable. And what that
Yeah.
looks like, I would hope that we would be really smart about how we role modeled accountability and forgiveness, acts of contrition, because I
Mm-hmm.
can't imagine a world where this what we're seeing now is ever going to be okay. So
Mm-hmm.
the question is, how do we live with ourselves under a system that wants to rule us and have
Mm-hmm.
that as the war machine, as the set of rules, and the fantasy of censorship and big
Mm.
pharma, poisoned food governing our
Yeah.
lives?
Yeah.
I think we all hold a piece of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I
I
think
see it. Yeah.
I think we're finding each other quicker.
Yeah.
I think we are finding each other, and to
Mm.
have this conversation for myself with you, Mary,
Mm.
um, it's not an everyday occurrence. Like, I am lucky,
Mm-hmm.
I do have a lot of women that I talk about this, but now I'm reaching across the world and having
Mm.
this conversation about love. And
Yeah.
that's a start,
Yes.
you know, and maybe this in some small way in dedicating the merit of this chat to the greater good of uplifting the mother and anchoring
Mm.
her here through our bodies. Um, who
This is
knows?
it. This
Little
is it.
evolution that, and I love it. You just repurpose these systems that
Mm.
do actually work.
Yeah. This is it. I feel us, and like you say about us connecting easier and faster, I feel that absolutely. And what I see us truly as doing, and the reason I call this the womb room is working with this, the intelligence of the womb, the formulating, connecting, um, how to be the soil, how to be the fabric, how to be the space where the seed can grow out in its purity to fullness. Because we all have the perfect, we are perfect in the beginning, in
Yeah.
essence. Our core vibration is just to get to that core vibration, and we are being taken to our core vibration so that we can be the pearl, which is the seed. I see us connecting in this way, and we are a system. No one is outside of the unified mind. So
Mm,
every conversation we have and is does inform the field. And it
mm,
seems like you say, it seems like an easy conversation we're having now. Like we talk about opening the ribbon. But what it
mm.
has taken for me
What is?
personally, and maybe for you too, to
Oh,
have the voice
absolutely. Yeah.
speak. Yeah.
Yeah. And the
Mhm.
initiations.
Mm.
Um, so just before this, I just remember one of the first things I studied was Ho'oponopono and Kahuna, and one of the
Mm-hmm.
most wonderful things about that was a simple statement: the world is what you think it is.
Mm.
And if we think that this is a unified field of love, and enough of us think that and embody that through our wombs, and we go into the dreaming, because the grandmothers, the indigenous grandmothers here are very clear about it has to happen in the dreaming first. We
Okay.
anchor the dreaming. And you do this, Mary. I watch you dream and talk about this stuff, and then you anchor it down with your podcast.
Mm.
One of my things has been anchoring down and really thinking about governance systems and how does the mechanics of being human work for community. And
Mm.
I've written policies around deep democracy and unconditional positive regard, uh, blind spots. I actually have whole policy documents about the cornerstones of democracy. So,
Okay.
it's asking everybody in this world, are you in integrity with your
Mhm.
relationship, work, right integrity to money, right relationship to money, right relationship to resources? And I'm not asking you to just blow yourself up and feel bad about yourself. This is a gentle, easy,
Mm.
ease, grace, playful, because we can either shut down with shame and guilt, go, oh my God, I've used 6 plastic bags today, bad me, bad me.
Mm.
Or you realize, this is what it was for today, and that you'll try better tomorrow. But the beat up
Yeah.
doesn't help us.
Mm.
Chop wood, carry water, it's all practice.
Mm.
And if you find yourself in a beat up story, um, bring breath back to it, do your work, find your trigger, find the story.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just a glass of red wine and chocolate with your friends.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just like I need
Yeah.
a day on the lounge watching my favorite movies. It doesn't matter what it
Mm.
looks like.
Yeah.
When you notice yourself out of honor, out of integrity,
Mm.
and that you didn't come from a position of love. And then it happens all the
Mm.
time. I'm forever
Yeah.
having to say sorry. Oh, sorry. I'm going to apologize now. I'm going to run over your sovereignty for a minute. I hope that's okay. This little text.
I love
Yeah.
that. It's like the shame. Um, Shame actually keeps us out of love, out of belonging. It kind of is like a shadow that just kind of sweeps us into an individual, a kind of individual space. And then we try to heal
Yeah.
ourselves in that little
Yeah.
kind of false cocoon. We
Yeah.
hide. It's a shadow. So yeah, the shame is does not help anyone. And like
No.
the eternal mother never asks for your sacrifice or your shame, you know?
See again, so many things you said, Mary. Just yeah,
Mm.
if you're sacrificing yourself, if you're not being replenished from this work, from this
Mm.
relationship, I know sometimes it looks really stuck, and I know in this human condition it can be hard to change. But even just the willingness to be willing to shift
Yeah.
starts magic happening.
Mm.
I haven't always had the how or the why, or it's not like I haven't
Yeah.
cried for days because I don't know where things are
Mm-hmm.
coming from. Money hasn't always come easy to me as a light worker. I constantly get kicked out of systems, or I leave with
Mm-hmm.
absolute disgust.
Yeah.
I piss people off. I don't
Mm-hmm.
mean to, but I really just upset people. Often people who like to think they've got power over me, and I just don't do
Mm-hmm.
hierarchy.
Yeah.
One of my friends would say I used to be formidable and scary.
Yeah.
And you learn that, scaring people with ferocity doesn't really work. I learned
Mm-hmm.
that as an activist, that my rage and yelling at the other side on a picket line, I
Mm.
saw the mirror and just went, well, this
Mm-hmm.
rage at them doesn't help any situation. So it's all those little moments as you grow up. And of course, I've got
Yeah.
58 years of practice. You
Yeah.
know,
Mm.
when I was in my 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, I didn't really kind of nail it into some
Mm.
sense of I've got this adulting thing. I was coming into
Mm.
52, and Native Americans would say you don't become a woman until you're 52. So,
Okay.
you can jump around all these little matrices and beliefs and go, this one's really useful. Oh, no, it's just okay. So I've just become a woman. But then, your
Mm.
initiations are different. Your body's changing,
Mm.
menopause kicking in. Um, in a time in a woman's life, traditionally we're meant to become less visible. Most of us
Mm-hmm.
find we are becoming more powerful. We've done our
Yeah.
children. We have
Mm.
come to a space in our hearts around 50 where our body's changing. And I know for me, I couldn't put
Mm.
up with my shit, let alone anybody else's. So something just came in and just went, oh, I'm done. Enough. Oh
I
no.
love that. I couldn't even put up with my own bullshit, let alone anyone else's.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, I'm here again and I'm really bored. And I talk to my friend and go, yeah, well, we've talked about this a few times over 30 years. Well, I'm back there
Yeah.
again. It's just,
I
the
love
never
that.
cycle of,
Yeah.
oh my God. And then saying to our younger ones, yeah, it's a
Mm-hmm.
spiral. You kind of think you're done with your mother wound or your
Mm-hmm.
father wound. And here it is from a little left of center and three quarters, right, right
Mm,
turn. And there's another little piece of something that you hadn't quite let
yeah.
go of or mopped up. Um,
Yeah.
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 And to play with it by my age now, I just learn. I sing to it, hello, darkness, my old friend. I,
Hello.
you
We
got
have to
something to
joke.
say, have you? Now, all right, okay, give it to me. What?
We have to joke though because um it really does dispel the laughter dispels it creates an agitation the same as shouting or crying. So it's definitely the nicest way to dispel from the body, isn't it? Laughter.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's like, what do you mean I'm not enlightened? I've done the work. What? Yeah. It's just another mission into you to anchor more of you back in your
Yeah.
authenticity
Mm.
and then yeah. So I am fully expecting in the dream time a
Yeah.
1,000,000,000 lights to come on and anchor love here.
Is this your dream? I would love to know, because you have been, as you say, you have been invited into so many circles of people, and you have been gathering their stories in all the different ways you gather. And I would love to know, and you know inherently the way of dreaming. So I would love to know what is the dream? What is that dream that kind of keeps you moving towards or from?
Hmm. I think it's a visceral knowing and remembrance that
Mm,
as humans we have the capacity to lift each other up.
mm,
And that is a choice as much as tearing each other down is. And
yeah.
I have been in community circles, and I now at my age have just run a collaboration with some women in Brisbane, and it was the most joyful, mature,
Mm,
organized delight I've ever been in. So if I can see it there in small ways, and this was
mm,
6 women coming together to put on a day and navigating whose religious, not who, sorry, whose beliefs and what shared values we have and what kind of honor code we were going to have happen, what happens when somebody didn't come up with something they said they do,
mm,
and the actual showing up through vulnerability and small little failures was so divine that I thought, this is it. This is
yeah.
love in motion. This is a
Mm,
collaboration of very, very different humans to put on
mm,
an experience for other women. I saw it in community theatres when circles and you in a community theatre you have got an opening night and you either get to that opening night driving everybody with fear and lack and
yeah.
sense that they're never going to be good enough, or you get to opening night with everybody going, we've done our best, it's awesome. When you're working with 60 people to get them on stage, that's a huge job. and
Mm-hmm.
and holding everybody and budding everybody up and making sure that there's communication systems, particularly if you're working with deaf people, people with a disability, or people who are traumatized from war. There are so many
Mm,
systems online to keep people's hearts
yeah.
held safe. And I think if there's
Mm,
something I do that is reflected back to me constantly, it's how safe people feel with me
yeah.
and how many people come into my awareness and how many people want to know me because
Mm,
they're held in unconditional positive regard. And I
mm-hmm.
don't know if I've heard a story from a human that I haven't seen in a movie or read in a book. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, darling, you're not the only one. This is
Yeah.
a human story of pain and suffering. We
Mm,
could watch this movie, we could read this book. Here's my own experience if you would like me to
mm,
share with you how I tackled it. But it is a story and
mm,
it's a common one, and you're not
yeah.
alone in it. Yeah.
This is beautiful. It feels so when I say the way we gather. because I do see us as gathering and weaving and doing everything we can to include or to it's not so much to include everyone because there's no we don't make the decision. It's to
Don't.
create the soil, to create the correct gathering, the system of gathering, so that the most people can be included. That's what I hear when you speak. It's like you're offering an invitation to a memory, to the correct dream, and
Yeah.
it's done in the way of softness, because, like I said earlier, you have a presence. There's no real self doubt, so it
Mm.
can be done softly when there's no core self doubt. It can be done in ripples, and eventually you'll get them up.
Mm.
It's just ripples and
And
ripples of the same
you're
thing.
right when you say then the
Mm,
only way somebody gets excluded is if they are
mm,
a harm to themselves or a harm to others. And
yeah,
that often looks like a lack of shared values or respect, where they will be supported if they so choose to be scaffolded to get some mental health support or whatever
mm,
support they need so that they can come back in with their best selves. Because
yeah,
it's not a failure of your human. You've just got some stuff going on that you don't understand in terms of creating a shared safe space. And
yeah,
exclusion comes as it often comes because when you're working with vulnerable people, you have to be very aware of safety. And
mm-hmm,
exclusion comes when there is a real obvious mismatch of agendas and values and things like that.
yeah.
Mm.
So how to have the shared value, and to be the beacon. It's truly being the beacon of the shared value, at the
Mm.
changing the common denominator,
Mm.
into one that's inviting, and people can get behind and work with. Is love,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mm, yeah.
And a vision, like, in theatre, it's a
Yeah.
vision of what the show will look like. So if we have a
Mm,
vision what this planet could look like, and there are so many people out there with glorious visions of eco
mm,
farming and pesticide-free food and
mm,
barter exchanges and little artist villages where people do get to be brilliant that they want to do, but that takes a lot of courage
mm,
and do need these mechanisms of organizational systems. Hospitals, we will always need hospitals because people get sick, and medicine is good. you
mm,
know when we've got a broken bone or our gallbladder burst, we want to be able to go to a hospital. So it's
yeah.
being really about bringing that love into the system and not having the big pharma over that you will do this and you will take that, and that
Mm,
obesity can be fixed up with another pharmaceutical needle. What about
mm,
nutrition and lifestyle and trauma in that person's body, and who
yeah.
are they and what do they want for their world, and how can we
Mm,
motivate them to
mm,
make the choices of self-love.
yeah.
There's so many. It's a complex system, but it's if it's
Yeah.
fueled by love, I know we can do it.
Mm. But it feels like we're at the end or the fullness of the bubble of the bad dream. Like it feels like there's nothing left but pop. Um,
Yeah,
and it feels like, I honestly, it feels like what we have been doing, my mother included, all the way back, all the women who took any position of the consciousness of the mother, which is a lot,
yes,
you know, having
yeah,
creating this catch-all, this fabric beneath the
yeah,
bubble. And it's
yeah,
almost like when the bad dream finally just leaves us, and it's leaving, I don't worry so much about the projection of it, the bigness of it, or the way it looks outside. I judge based on what's happening in here, and I'm feeling the overriding, the systems of governance that do not trust me, all of this, the micro version of it inside me is falling away, and at the same time, it's like a power from beneath is rising, or and a truth and the memory and the core strength from the and that will look like all the systems and the structures is just rising. And
Yeah.
I know enough to know if I feel that in me, that's everywhere, because I'm only part of a system,
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And thousand monkeys,
Mm,
sometimes I've thought something and then I see it in somebody's post and I go, oh, there is a wave of these extraordinary
mm,
women. Largely, I find women on this planet are reinvigorating these codes
mm-hmm,
and they're holding steadfast. I mean, COVID was a very challenging time.
yeah.
And I think
Mm-hmm,
from those years on, we've really seen the drawing of breath. And of course,
mm,
the rigid that gets, the more people are going to want to stretch and flex in it because they
yeah,
don't seem to understand that people will always choose freedom and love. You look at
yeah.
history, there is always resistance to dark
Mm-hmm,
forces.
yeah.
Yeah.
COVID really felt like to me, and what I'm seeing, the consequence of it, it was a line in the sand, one way or the other.
Mm,
It was a really strong choice point of which road should I take from this. Like this is, we could see, we could feel, I could feel the threat of what was happening in my body. When I feel actual threat, I
mm,
activate everything comes on because I know the difference between something I'm told to be frightened of and threat that I feel in my body. And
yeah.
I can say that everyone knows the difference. So it introduced a level of threat and a level of malevolence that was so undeniable. The intention, the end of it was clearly to me, a complete overriding within the biological body of our divinity, and to
Mm,
connect us to an artificial intelligence, like once and for all, would be the hope of that intention. But I also knew by the obnoxious displays that they behaved with, that they were desperate. So that showed me they were
yes.
at the end of their time.
Yeah.
So then it was literally all horses out the gate. Let's go,
Yeah.
bring it on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think if enough of us released the horses at that time to change the course of that.
I think
Mm,
so too. I particularly had a really bad series of dreams, and my
mm-hmm,
spiritual grandmother had gone after the beingness of this COVID. And
mm-hmm,
again, it was this black sticky tar stuff. And whenever I sense that black sticky tar, like spider web sticky tar, I know it has
mm,
something to do with malevolent forces. In my
mm,
dreamings, I was told very clearly this will cut you off from source. May not everybody, it's not everybody's stories, but for me personally, my
yeah.
dreaming scared me enough to go, I would prefer to be kicked out of the world than to
Mm-hmm,
put that in my arm because I knew
mm,
what it would do to me. And
yeah.
then I witnessed the intentional cruelty.
Mm-hmm,
Um, the intention, how quickly intentional cruelty and fear governed people that I've loved and worked with for a very long time. And it was like a
yeah.
switch flicked. And
Mm-hmm,
again, an amazing practice to go, well, you made your choices. I love you unconditionally.
mm,
There were some people in that round of particular insanity that I had to
mm,
let go because
yeah.
they were so rude and so fascist in their stance on what I should be doing to make their
Mm-hmm,
world comfortable, that they were
yes.
willing to send me to a wellness camp or to lock me out of shops or
Mm-hmm,
to and I'm an archer and I'd had all these dreams
mm,
and I just thought, well, I'm a good shot. I just pick up my bow and go hunting and move into the bush over
mm,
capitulating and being rounded up because it activated all these memories of being rounded up
mm-hmm,
and put into concentration camps and
mm-hmm,
not being allowed to have your own belief systems and that
mm,
double-edged sword of we didn't force you, but you
yeah.
did through coercion and
Mm-hmm,
the people who held out until their financial collapse and ruin or lack of access for their children to resources.
mm-hmm,
People weren't allowed in to see pediatricians because they weren't vaccinated. So the children were suffering. And it was
mm-hmm,
very, very, very dark. People weren't allowed to
yeah.
have surgery.
Mm-hmm,
And for people to think anything other than it was a squeeze of our humanity,
Mm.
um, must still be in the fear-based thinking.
Yeah,
Still,
yeah.
they're waiting for the bird flu and what is it, the
Mhm.
sloth disease. And I just roll my eyes now. Seriously. I could do with
They
some
make up,
sloth
yeah.
disease. Does that mean I don't get off the
Go
lounge
for a
for a
nap.
week?
Yeah, go for a nap for a week. Sounds lovely.
Sloths are
I want.
really happy. What kind of disease is that?
We had
But
one.
that's
They tried to talk about monkeypox, but in Ireland we have an expression, and maybe it's in Australia too, poxy. You say if something is stupid, you'd say it's poxy. So just straight away off the bat when they spoke about monkeypox, it was like I don't care about that poxy disease. It just got turned into poxy disease. Forget about
yeah,
it. It couldn't stick. And what I've seen is it, and maybe I feel this that people these things aren't sticking the same way. I feel like
yeah,
COVID was a kind of a push point one way or the other, and
yeah,
things aren't sticking. And also because of the amount of loss, people we loved who died or who were maimed, it also brought a level of kind of like, well, I'm at the edge of a cliff now, so I don't care anymore. You've
yeah,
shown me what you would do to me. You've shown me the contempt you have for me, what you have done to my family, what you would do to my children if you
yes,
could. So now I don't, now you're going to see what's always been here. So,
yeah. What you've woken up. Yeah,
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 exactly. Yeah. So it
yeah,
was it was a it was also something that we were woken up. And I say, like, when I say we could feel the threat through the body, is that the eternal body? Is that what woke the dragons up?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Because
mm,
now here we are, and there's a rainbow
yeah,
bridge built, and the
yeah,
dragon mother is sitting in the central sun, and the governance
yes,
systems are coming down, and we're working through the hell, like, clearing the hell realms up through the body
mm,
to
mm-hmm,
hold it on the planet with everybody else.
yeah,
Everybody else. I have so much honor for everybody
mm,
else who's
yeah,
doing the work and putting their
mm,
voice um, into the public realm. Yeah.
yeah. And it feels now perhaps easier. It does feel easier to speak into the public realm. And it,
Yeah,
it
it
feels
does.
like, yeah, just to know that if we are speaking, in a way that if we consider to ourselves, well, maybe I won't be accepted or whatever, any of that stuff, the truth is we're answering a call. So
Mm,
we're answering the cries, we're answering the prayers. And I always think of what is happening now as our this deep ancient voices are speaking. There are people in serious trouble on this earth, so we don't get to speak to the sweetness and the people who have the privilege of sweetness and light, the people who have the privilege of a disembodied spirituality. We're speaking to the whole of humanity, and
yeah,
what feels like love to somebody who is in serious trauma and active torture is a different kind of love. It's love that is like protective, and I'm coming for you, and I hear you, and I won't forget you. And that's that we are bringing the full length and breadth and power of love to
mm,
to the earth in the way that it has been called for. And that
mm.
is that is what's happening. Yeah.
And just on that, every day I give
Mm,
gratitude for my life because but for the grace
mm,
of God, this is if I am you and you are me, there are, as you're saying, humans on this planet. And I
mm,
have an affinity with children. I
mhm.
work with children. I was a sexual assault counselor to children. Um, children and innocence, you know,
Yeah.
um, holding that battlefield with innocence. And,
Mm,
because I was aware, I was, doing this work in the late 90s, early 2000s, was very aware of the pedophilia story back then and the academic papers that were coming through about normalizing this.
mm.
And it is, again, another push to take innocence away from us.
Yeah.
And um, and not on my watch, Mary. You say it so eloquently. I go, I'm
Yeah.
on her team, not on my watch. Again,
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
tattoos on me are about not
Mm,
on my watch.
yeah. Yeah.
No, you
And
leave
yeah,
children alone. And
absolutely.
I sit in this beautiful part of the world where the rainforest meets the sea. I can hear the
Mm,
creek flowing, and there's a rainforest creek, the shades of green. And I look into
mm,
the heart and the witness suffering of even the last couple of videos coming out of Lebanon and Gaza now. And I just pray, Mother, take them into your arms because,
mm.
I could drop into powerlessness and despair. That's not useful. It's
Yeah,
fierce love again.
yeah.
After I cry, after I feel the
Mm,
suffering, I feel it through my heart.
mm-hmm.
I give grief up to Mother and say, get down here.
Yeah,
Just come on,
yeah.
come on.
Mm.
I,
I have
I,
all
I can
these,
be very,
yeah, tingles in
yeah.
my body listening to you. It's happening as you speak it, it's happening.
Mm,
And that is the love of the mother and the presence of the mother. It's the love that's actually needed, not the
yes.
decoration, not the adornment. It's the love that's actually needed. That is the role of women here today,
Yeah,
and the role of the
yeah.
mother within everyone. But what I would say is that we have been called for, we've been cried for, we've cried for ourselves, we've called the fullness of ourselves back here through what we have been pushed to, or the level of threat we felt to human and feel to humanity. We're calling the fullness of ourselves here, the eternal selves. And it is on our watch. It is our watch. And
It
what
is
is
our
happening, yeah, we are being given everything we need now in the physical sense, in our own body, the systems, the structures, everything we actually need to bring this realm to order, to the order of Mother. Yeah,
mm,
yeah.
mm,
Mm.
mm.
That was a beautiful point to reach, Velvet. That is a
Mm.
powerful point to reach. Okay.
Yeah.
I think we are good. Is there anything after that, or is that our point?
I do. I feel like I mean, I could rave on forever. I love a chat. Um, I feel complete.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
in this speaking, this is wonderful. Yeah.
yeah,
and
yeah.
and and this the Irishness meeting this Australianness, and I know you've met my friend Lamo, my sister Heart
Mhm,
Dragon Rider Lamo, and again her work is reclaiming the mother lines, the mother seven
mm,
generations forward and back. So that's
yeah,
clearing that we can do on our watch too.
yeah.
And reclaiming our mother's line is very important work. And thank you so much. I love you so
Thank you,
much.
Velvet. I love you too, Velvet. Thank you for coming to the first ever womb room. So exciting.
Woo. Yeah,
Womb
it's a good
room.
one to get your mouth
I don't
around it. Woo,
know.
woo, woo.
Womb room. There's a lot going on in that. But it feels like we kept talking until the tingles came in and I felt the crystal um ping. So we got our beautiful embodied um what we spoke until it came to ground. So thank you so much. The pearl is in the ground.
Pearl is in the ground. Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Good night from
Blessings,
Australia.
everyone. Take care.
Bye. Bye.